November 25th, Benavidez Vs Andrade is happening with a pretty stacked undercard. And as we did with the Canelo Charlo fight, we'll make two separate videos, one for the undercard and one for the main fight. Of course, this will be about the undercard, which includes two title fights and one special attraction. Of course, the opener, Hector Luis Garcia will be defending his WBA Super Featherweight World title against Lamont Roach. And in the next fight, Subriel Matias will be making a defense of his IBF Junior Welterweight title against an undefeated power puncher. And in the co-main event, we'll head back to the Wild West as we'll have a good old American shootout between Charlo making his return to the ring after 2 years off against the former title challenger Jose Benavidez Jr. in his second fight in middleweight. Unfortunately for that fight, it is a 10-round middleweight catchweight bout, which means no title will be on the line for Jose Benavidez Jr. But of course, the first fight, Hector Luis Garcia is coming off of his stoppage defeat against Tank Davis back in January, where Tank hit him pretty hard, and he did say that he could not see properly, and the fight was stopped in between rounds. Now, some people say that he quit. Other people say it might have been legit that he couldn't see anything, but then again, when you're fighting against someone like Tank, you can't really rule out that possibility. And of course, the challenger, Lamont Roach, is a 23-1-1 boxer with 9 knockouts, so not really too much of a power puncher, but he's coming off of a 4-fight win streak after his loss to Jamel Herring back in the super featherweight when he challenged for the WBO Super Featherweight World Champion. Of course, he did lose via unanimous decision, but valiant effort nonetheless. Of course, that one split decision draw comes to Orlando Cruz back in 2018, and his loss came back in 2019. Although he's only fought 4 times in the span of 3 years, he's still fighting. Of course, he's coming off of 2 knockout wins and 2 unanimous decision wins against, I don't want to say subpar opponents, but his most recent win, a good win. 20-0 Angel Rodriguez. And of course, the champion, 16-1 with 10 knockouts. He has a lot of pop in his power. Although not in one knockout power, he can dominate the fight as he did in his last 2 fights before losing to Gervonta Davis between Chris Colbert and Roger Gutierrez, which was, of course, the champion at the time. And of course, who do I think is going to win? This is going to be a very interesting fight for the sole fact that Hector Luis Garcia, although having lots of months to, heal from his past loss, obviously that being in the beginning of this year in January, it being like 10 months after the loss, he's still coming off of a loss to a very, very strong power puncher in Tank Davis. Of course, he's fighting a relatively good boxer in Lamont Roach. So who do I think is going to win? To be honest, it depends on how well Hector Luis Garcia, appears in the fight. Because, when you lose in the way that Garcia did, I don't want to say it changes someone, but, it would be a little dumb to say that he's going to come back like nothing happened. Something's going to happen, right? And, of course, Roach has to exploit that. But do I think that's going to happen? Maybe. There is a high chance. I think Garcia wins via split decision. I think this will be a very entertaining fight. But Roach's biggest downfall, of course, is his lack of power. Although he's coming off of 2 knockout wins, which is amazing. That being 2 out of his 9 knockout wins, which is an impressive increase in his knockouts, of course. But that little, I don't know. But then again, he could also be coming into his strength, right? But what I think is gonna happen? I do think Roach is gonna not steal, but win a bunch of the early rounds. But I do think Garcia is gonna come on strong, and I do think the last 2 rounds will be the deciding factor on who wins. And of course, I still choose Garcia to win via split decision. But of course, Roach is a live dog. I don't know if he's an underdog or not. I need to check the stats. But of course, I still got Garcia retaining his title. And of course, in the super featherweight division, the champions are relatively new. Only one champion out of the division has defended his title more than once. That, of course, being Emmanuel Navarrete defending it against Oscar Valdez. And, of course, Robson Conceição. Of course, the WBA version, obviously, Hector Luis Garcia will be making his first title defense. The WBC one, Oshaki Foster made his first defense against Rocky Hernandez. And Joe Cordina made the first defense of his title against Edward Vasquez. Of course, super featherweight is a very interesting fight. Obviously, we all want to see unification bouts, but of course, we could see Garcia versus Cordina sometime in the future. But of course, I do got Garcia retaining his title in a split decision close bout between Lamont Roach, obviously. And of course, the next fight is of course someone else also making the first defense of his title, Subriel Matias, obviously the 100% knockout artist. And although he does have a loss, he did avenge his loss, and of course you see his record by knockout. So, although technically he doesn't have a 100% knockout, you can kind of count it. And of course, he is fighting another knockout artist. I don't know what's going on in the matchmaking, but they really, really might not like Matias, man. They put him up against a 30-0, 20 knockout Jeremiah Ponce, and now they're putting him up against a 23-0, 20 knockout power puncher. Although I'm sorry I cannot pronounce his name. Another power puncher, and damn, that's tough. But of course, Subriel Matias, as obviously with the Ponce fight, has shown that he could take power and he knows how to defend it. And of course, the way he does it is by basically just letting them go ham on him, basically. But, eventually that might end up not going well for Matias, but I do think it goes well for Matias in this bout. Like I said, Matias is 19-1 with 19 knockouts. Of course, avenging his loss via, of course, knockout. But of course, the challenger is a better boxer than Ponce, for the sole fact that Ponce kind of basically just threw a bunch of hooks, which for some reason, when you're a good fighter, the hooks basically do nothing. I mean, Boots versus Villa was a thing, so, But of course, this challenger is a little bit of a better boxer. He can move a little bit better. He can move a lot better than Matias, but the thing is, I think the lack of good opposition for him is going to be his downfall against a massive power puncher like Matias, because I think this is the first time he's facing someone that's as strong as him. Never mind. Because this will be one of the first times he's going to be fighting someone as strong as him and maybe even better than him. But of course, Matias is the one that breaks you down after a while. But of course, it's probably going to end up the same thing as Ponce. Like how the challenger is going to be like, pa, pa, pa. Just unloading on Matias, and Matias just going to be blocking all of it. Just like, I'm just waiting for my time. I was like, oh my god, Matias is getting lit up, and Matias just like, okay. It's the third round. I think it's time to try now. And he just started whooping them. But of course, just like the other one, Matias is making the first defense of his title in a super lightweight division that has been filled with new champions due to the fact that Josh Taylor was stripped right before his fight with Teofimo, so Teofimo got robbed, but whatever. Of course, you got the champions, Prograis making the second defense of his world title against Devin Haney, the WBA champion. Rolando Romero's in recession, so O'Hara Davis and Ismael Barroso will be fighting it out for the interim or full title. I think that might change in a little bit because Rolly has been pronounced champion in recession. Of course, Matias. Everyone also kind of needs to defend their title more than once, but of course, that's a very interesting fight. I do got Matias 8th round stoppage. Although the longer it goes, the more it favors the challenger, because I do think his ability to move will benefit him the most, obviously, against someone like Matias. But Matias is just that quiet stalker. He just follows you around. He's like, damn. But yeah, I got Matias 8th round stoppage in I want to say very interesting bout. But Matias isn't really one to throw like a bunch of shots, but he is one to throw shots consistently. So yeah. And of course, the co-main event, the return of Jermall Charlo. Of course, he is facing Jose Benavidez Jr. in the co-main event. Unfortunately, it will not be for the title or cash weight. So if I had a nickel for every time the WBC had a professional bout that wasn't for the title, I'd have 2 nickels. And of course, the first one is, of course, Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou, but whatever. But of course, the challenger, the B-side, of course, is Jose Benavidez Jr. with a record of 28-2-1. Of course, his losses coming to Terrence Crawford in the welterweight division and Danny Garcia in the super welterweight division. So that's very interesting. Jermall Charlo is basically fighting a super welterweight, but whatever. And of course, that one draw came after his loss to Terrence Crawford. He lost to Terrence Crawford, drawed with Francisco Emmanuel Torres, and then lost to Danny Garcia. But then he won against the journeyman, so that's not a good sign. But of course, Jermall Charlo is undefeated in the ring, 32-0 with 22 knockouts, quite the power puncher. But his last fight was June 19th of 2021. 2 years and 5 months without being in the ring. And of course, this will due to mental problems. We will not get into that. But of course, and the thing is, Jermall Charlo was already having a bad performance because his last fight, the fight, before he just left for 2 years, was against Juan Mancias Montiel, right? That's someone who Jaime Munguia knocked out pretty quickly. Jermall Charlo went 12 rounds with him, so that says a lot. Although he did beat Sergey Derevyanchenko a little bit more convincingly than Jaime Munguia, that doesn't change the fact that his last performance was a little bad. It wasn't even a little bad. It was really bad. But of course, how do I think this fight's going to go? This is going to be a very interesting one because Jose Benavidez, although is a good boxer, you can see him actually let go of his hands. He is very accurate, very strong with his punches. But him and his brother both have a tendency of letting their opponents just wail on them for like 5 punches at least, just to not throw anything back. Especially Benavidez Jr. He leans back all the way for some reason. I don't know. But he does it, and he has to stop. He needs to stop because he's facing Jermall Charlo coming off of a mental break of 2 years. And if he lets Jermall Charlo get any confidence back, he's getting knocked out. He's getting knocked out by Charlo if he lets him get any confidence back. But of course, 2 years off for mental problems is going to do a lot. It's different from an injury. It's different from whatever. Because if I injure my right hand or my entire right arm, when I come back, I'm just going to be less likely to throw the right hand. But mentally, it will be hard for me to throw any punches. I'll just be a shell. I'll literally just shell up and take the punches. And of course, Benavidez needs to pounce on this because this is 10 rounds. This will go by quick. Benavidez needs to pounce on him since round number 1. Don't step off the gas. Don't let him do anything. Counter at least. He needs to counter at least. Because if Charlo throws a punch and Benavidez hits him after the punch, obviously countering, Charlo is going to lose more and more of that little confidence that he has. But of course, if he does that thing that he always does and lets people just wail on him, although it is mostly blocked, Charlo's going to start getting more and more confident, and you'll start seeing more of his form back. Now, that being said, there's a lot of what if in this fight. What if Charlo comes back like nothing happened? Of course, that is the least likely option. The other option is, what if Jose Benavidez just lets Charlo wail on him for 10 rounds? That's also something that's not very likely. Benavidez Jr. knows what's at stake here. He said it himself, if he loses, he's basically retiring. And he has an injured Charlo. Basically, well, of course, not literally injured, but mentally injured. Of course, Benavidez is hungry. Of course, what happens in the animal kingdom when a hungry lion sees a wounded buffalo? He's going to wail on him. He's going to absolutely bully him. Doesn't matter how strong the buffalo was before. If it's injured, you're just going to pounce on it. It's easy. So, of course, Benavidez, like I said, is probably still going to fight like that. So, it's so weird because Charlo hasn't fought in 2 years. Benavidez Jr. has a humongous chance of winning. But Charlo always has power. And, of course, Benavidez losing at welterweight and super welterweight, even losing by KO in welterweight, who knows how his chin holds up at 160. But, of course, that's asking too much because that's asking Charlo lands a clean shot on him, right? But it might not happen. So, after all that talking, who do I got? I got Jose Benavidez Jr. via decision. I think Benavidez does it, especially with someone, like I said, I keep saying it because it's important. Charlo's coming off of a 2-year layoff. Not only will he have ring rust, we don't even know if he's mentally still 100%. He might have just been pressured to fight. I don't know. And of course, loser is most likely going to retire. Because Benavidez, if he loses, is basically his last shot at being at an elite level. And of course, when you've been at the elite level, you don't really want to stay as a gatekeeper or even a journeyman, right? But, that will be Benavidez's fate if he loses to Charlo. If Charlo loses, that would basically destroy any confidence that he had left of him returning to the ring. So, but of course, like I said, this fight will contain a lot of what ifs. But of course, but the true victor will most likely be decided by who gives the extra 10% in the fight. And of course, like I said, a bunch of what ifs, but but on paper, at face value, that person will be Jose Benavidez Jr. So of course I got Benavidez Jr. via unanimous decision. Subriel Matias round 8 stoppage, and Hector Luis Garcia split decision to win in a very action-packed undercard, because this undercard is severely underrated. I don't think a lot of people are truly seeing how much good fights are in here. But like I said, this is the end of the video. The next video will of course be the Benavidez versus Andrade, and the reason why I do this is because as you can look at the time of the undercard fight, it's a little long. I don't really want to upload a 25-minute video, but of course, whatever, it depends. Maybe you guys do really want something like that, and of course I will upload it combined, of course, if you ask for it. But of course, like I said, hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.